The Amazing World of Gumball is a series about a cat and a fish named Gumball and Darwin alongside their other family members Anais, Nicole, and Richard, all going on miscellaneous adventures revolving around topics such as being scared to be yourself, the difficulties and jealousies that occur within relationships, the fears of growing up, family trauma, and even more. All the while still being on the surface and sure maybe in some episodes, just seeming like it's made for kids. The show also gets some crazy lore later on, having an arc about this place called the Void, making us believe that there's way more to the world than let on. And so with that said, in this video I'll be covering every more or less story-based and or important episode in the series, from every Watterson backstory, such as how Nicole and Richard met, how Gumball and Darwin met, how Gumball and Penny started dating, how Darwin and Carrie started dating, the whole Void storyline, and even more. Beginning with the childhood of Richard Watterson. We only see Richard's childhood a few times in the show, such as in the episode The Man, where his mom reveals the fact that his dad left him when he was a kid, which we then see actually happen in the episode The Signature. Besides that, from these episodes and a few others, we know that his mom was scarily overprotective of him, to the point where even when he's an adult, he's scared of her. So yeah, his childhood wasn't exactly the best, but thankfully this all led to him getting fat and stupid, resulting in him to one day find himself stuck in a log, where he then stumbles upon his future wife, Nicole, who also didn't have the best childhood or parents in general as well, as we see in the episode The Choices. Gumball, Darwin, Anais, and Richard are all begging Nicole for food, and of course being the absolute idiots they are, distract her, which causes a fire, leading Nicole to ask herself where did she go wrong, before saying that it all started with Richard, as we then get a flashback to Nicole's childhood, and we quickly see that she had terrible parents growing up, as they bring up her report card and she says that she got perfect A's, but they say not in gender, as she put F, obviously because she's a female, but they just say that being a girl is not an excuse, like they are actually stupid. And then they get in a car crash and Nicole asks how much time she has, but then her mom just starts listing the amount of time until she graduates, until she gets her diploma from law school, and until she marries a doctor. Literally all they care about is her being successful. It's really sad. But Nicole then runs to go to her tournament, also running past a bunch of guys who want to ask her out or just try to get in her way, but then she realized that she was lost, but then also found Richard in a log, as we then flash back to the future, realizing that this was the moment that led her here, causing her to believe that if she had gone down any other different path, things might have ended up different. As we see, if she literally just went left instead of right, she would have beat the tournament, graduated school, got super rich, became president, and then literally like a tyrant ruler, but then also hated by everybody. She then imagines if she listened to Banana Bob's song, as we then see a future where her and him got married, as she slowly just goes insane. She then imagines listening to Tobias' dad, as we see them get married, and that he would have forced her to be just someone she isn't, and once again drove her insane. She imagines she'd listen to Mr. Small, but then she ends up dead, and even if she didn't step on the butterfly, she would have choked on it and once again died. As she listened to the robber guy and got a ride from him, she would have died as well. And all of this causes Nicole to realize that there was no other way around this. She was meeting Richard that day no matter what. This was destiny. Nicole then tells Richard that she has to go to her tournament, and Richard asks her why, and she says because she has to fight, and once again he asks her why, and that she has to be the best so people would like her, and once again he asks why, and then says that people already like her. And as she asks who, of course he starts blushing, which causes her to start blushing, which was really cute. The bell to the tournament then goes off, and Nicole realizes that it's too late and it's over, and that she has to go home empty-handed. And she starts crying, but Richard then gives her a nut to cheer her up, which was also really cute. She then asks him what she should do with her life, and he says that she should start living it, which was such a good response. This scene is like the perfect example that Richard is dumb but can be really mature and give really good advice out of nowhere, which is really impactful, which is why I honestly love his character so much. But before continuing Nicole and Richard's story, I also want to state that during this time period, Nicole also trained alongside her friend Yuki and beat her in a tournament. It's kind of important Nicole lore, as it answers why she's such a beast throughout the series. We then get to see the two story from this point to the future, with how they started dating, how Richard met their parents, and of course how they disapproved of him, how it resulted in Nicole leaving her parents' house, as well as Richard getting kicked out of his, yet how despite everything the two still supported each other, going from living in a crummy apartment to getting married and having a kid, to finally buying the house together, to seeing Gumball walk for the first time, just fully watching them blossom into these great parents that are so much better than theirs. But now, with the story of how Nicole and Richard came to be out of the way, and with our main character now born, it's time to cover the origins of Gumball and Darwin, which begins with a first person shot of Nicole upset at Gumball for destroying the house. We then see that Gumball's energy is off the charts, and Nicole and Richard can't really raise him on their own, so they come up with the idea to get him a pet. So they then get him a goldfish, which seems to do the trick, and then when they ask what he's gonna name it, of course he names it Darwin. And then Richard and Nicole realize they can finally relax and go to sleep, but they then wake up to Gumball making alarm sounds and then saying that Darwin is dead. And so Richard flushes it down the toilet and gets a new goldfish, and thus Darwin too is born. But he does not last very long, so they then buy another goldfish, but then he's killed before even getting back to the house. They then get about 4 more fish, but all of them of course end up dead. And as Richard goes to the store to buy another one, Larry says that there aren't any more. And as Richard contemplates on what he's gonna tell Gumball, a guy brings Richard into his van and asks him what he seeks, before Richard stumbles upon a goldfish bowl, which of course has the real Darwin. And after buying it, he says to be careful because that fish is more special than it seems. And as Gumball and Darwin first meet, Gumball quickly realizes that this fish is different, as Darwin starts copying him, and then when he touches him, this happens. Gumball then tells him his name, and then Darwin repeats it, showing that this fish can also talk. And of course Gumball, being excited, wants to show his parents, but also wanting to surprise them, tells Darwin to basically play dead. But Richard then comes in thinking that he's actually dead. Nicole then tries to tell Gumball the truth, but Gumball then shows that he actually kind of knew all along, as he says that they died and Richard flushed them down the toilet, but that it's fine because this fish hasn't stopped moving. But then as he remembers that he told him to stop moving, he starts panicking, realizing that his dad is gonna flush him down the toilet. But he then runs in and saves Darwin, and then the family goes to take a picture, and Darwin says cheese, of course scaring Nicole and Richard, causing Darwin to fly into the toilet and of course flush himself, ending the episode with a to be continued, bringing us to the origins part 2, picking up right where we left off, with Darwin now lost in the ocean, not knowing where he is. He then has some fish bring him to land, but then of course being in the air, he stops being able to breathe. But then we go into Darwin's heart and transition back to Gumball, who then tells his parents that he believes that Darwin will come back, and somehow this message reaches Darwin and then gives him the ability to breathe on land. And so Darwin begins the treacherous journey back to Gumball's while singing one of the most iconic songs in the whole series. But eventually the journey gets really hard and Darwin basically dies. But Gumball then says that if he were there for Darwin, he would kick him in the butt. And we then transition back to Darwin, who once again somehow gets this message and then just grows legs and kicks himself. But using these, Darwin is actually able to make it back to Elmore. But as he asks people in town where Gumball lives, of course he just scares the shit out of them. And so when Darwin finally finds Gumball, pest control comes and shoots him and puts him in a cage with a bunch of other animals. We then see Gumball trying to put up posters for people to find Darwin, but then as the wind blows them away, he starts crying and then gives up, feeling like they'll never find him anyway, which was really sad. And the fact that Darwin also felt this made it even sadder. But Darwin then escaped the van, but right as he ran up to the family, they were already in the car on the way to go to the store to replace him. And Darwin then runs after the car begging to not be replaced. But then as they arrive at the store, Darwin looks through the window as Gumball is holding another fish in his hands. But as Darwin walks away crying, Gumball gets this feeling in his heart that Darwin is here. And so he runs outside, where he then sees Darwin, and the two then run up to each other and hug, which was genuinely just so beautiful. And Richard then tells him to call him dad, and Nicole notices that his feet are dirty, and Gumball then gives him his shoes, and Darwin says that he'll never take them off. As they then get in the car, and Nicole gives him a kiss, and Gumball and Darwin then fall asleep on each other, and Nicole and Richard drive home. Just a proper episode showing how Gumball and Darwin came to be, and how Darwin became a part of their family. The whole thing is just so wholesome. Yet despite now having 2 boys, Nicole and Richard would then also have a girl named Anais, and we actually see how she fits into the picture in the episode The Rival, which takes us 4 years in the past as Nicole is about to give birth to Anais, with Nicole and Richard panicking while Gumball and Darwin sit in the back seat, excited to meet their new sister, as having one would apparently make them better listeners, and they would look cool when they protect her from bullies. As we see Gumball just run in to punch a toddler, which was really funny. But then as they arrive to the hospital, instead of just going in, they just drive through. And then once they get out, Anais is just there in the car seat, and Gumball and Darwin then adore her. But then we get the classic reveal that she's gonna be evil, as she smiles creepily and throws them out the window into cement. They then get home and want to believe that Anais is innocent, but then their TV literally says, "You thought all babies were innocent? Check out these baby sharks eating each other." And then they make some crazy expressive faces straight out of One Piece. But Darwin then says that she only pushed them out because she was scared, so they go into her room to try to make her not scared. But then we see that she drew a painting of her dad and mom, and as they ask where they are, she shows that she drew them buried underground, of course doing her evil face again. They then ask her if she wants to play hide and seek, and they begin the count. But then when they open their eyes, they are in the middle of traffic and almost get hit by a truck. And Darwin's soul then leaves his body, and Gumball says, "At least your soul was going up." Yeah, Gumball's soul is definitely going to hell. But when they go home, Anais creates a trap and gets their parents to come in, of course making it look like they're just jealous and want to get rid of her. But we quickly see that it's the other way around, as Anais then tries to kill them multiple times, until eventually they try to get their revenge by putting her in a box in the middle of the street. But then she gets taken by the garbage men, so they chase after the truck to the garbage dump, and Gumball saves her from getting squished and cut. Then as they're about to fall into lava, the screen cuts to black and Darwin saves them just before it's too late. But then they open the box and see that Anais isn't in it, and then as they yell out her name, she comes up behind them and is about to push them. But as she sees them crying, she actually hugs them and stops being her evil self, or at least that's what we thought, as she then says her first words, "Gumball did it," as we then see Richard and Nicole pull up looking pissed. This was a very cliche plot with the whole baby being evil thing, but it's also very fitting to Anais' character. It felt like a good way to introduce her. And once again, despite now the family already getting larger, the Watterson family tree grows once again, as Richard's dad actually decided to come back with the milk.
Hey.
Season 3, Episode 24, The Man. Gumball's family celebrates Richard's mom's birthday, and after Richard gives her his surprise, she says that she has a surprise for him before opening the door and introducing her new boyfriend, Louis, which causes Richard to pass out. And once waking up, he then instantly begins to yell and make fun of Louis, showing Richard was clearly just pissed the fuck off. As Louis leaves, he then drags him back in just to tell him to get out of his house and then not ever call him his son. But Richard then confronts his mom, asking her what his father's gonna think once he comes back, before revealing that she told him that he left to go buy milk 42 years ago and could be back any minute. Gumball then tries to get Louis and Richard to talk it out, and his mother says that she thought that he understood that he didn't really go to get the milk, before Richard tries to make himself not burst into tears. But then he finally lets it out, and then comes to terms with his mother being with Louis, who he now accepts as his new father. Although a very disgusting relationship, this was still very heartwarming. Season 4, Episode 5, The Signature. Louis tells Richard that he wants to marry his mother and move to Florida, instantly removing his mature positive outlook from the end of the last episode, as he instantly decides that he's gonna adopt Louis and forbid him from doing so. But after doing that, Louis then adopts Nicole, completely fucking up the entire family dynamic, making the most powerful person in the family none other than Richard's dad, Frankie Watterson, who his mom calls a con man and a shyster, resulting in the adults to break out into a fight, leaving Gumball, Darwin, and Anais to realize that they need to find Frankie and get him to re-adopt Richard and therefore fix their family. But we then cut to Frankie, who is in desperate need of finding a new place to live due to not paying rent, before seeing a newspaper where they had apparently left a message for him to come home. And so Richard and his father finally reunite, and Richard shows a heartbreaking display of his built-up emotions towards him. And Frankie then gives Richard the supposed adoption papers from the sign, only for him to then instantly dip and it to be revealed that it was actually the deed to their fucking house, making them realize if Louis and Richard's mom get married, he can take her name and therefore be the oldest Watterson and can more or less take ownership of the house and then give it back to them. And so they head to town hall and try to get the paper signed, but of course Frankie is there to officially take the house. But before doing so, he looks back at Richard and remembers when he left him when he was a kid, finally understanding what he's doing is all sorts of messed up and that he can't go through with it. Everyone then gets the house back and Frankie begins to walk off, but Richard actually stops him to have him sign the adoption papers, wanting his dad back in his life and wanting to give him that one last chance, ending the episode with the whole family back together. Season 5, episode 14, The Outside. The family goes to visit Frankie only to see that his living conditions are borderline unlivable. And they then assume that the reason he's living like this is because all of the years that he's been gone, he was actually in prison. And so they decide to take him to their house, which they then make feel like a prison to make him feel like he's more at home. But they then take it way too far and make even Frankie believe that their family is just batshit insane. And so he runs away, but eventually everything gets cleared up as they chase him and tell him that they were only doing this to make him feel at home because they thought he went to prison. But then it's revealed that he never actually went to prison, and that the whole time he was gone from Richard's life, he was running away from going to prison because he had been sentenced to 3 days in jail for selling parcels of the moon to senior citizens. Anais then asks why he can't cope with living on the outside, and he then does admit to trying to get free rent and food out of them before Richard says that he doesn't have to do that and should just come and live with them. But after all of this, he decides that he doesn't want to anymore. Right before the cops show up and take him to prison for selling those parcels of the moon, and he just accepts it, thinking that it would be better than living with them. And so everything comes full circle, with him seeming like now he would just be out of the picture and the Richard Frankie arc would come to a close. But there actually is one more episode to discuss, being season 6, episode 6, The Father. Frankie is invited to a party at the Watterson household for a supposed holiday called Vermin Man Day, and they then begin to sing the Vermin Man song, which is very obviously just about Frankie. It's then also revealed that it was all made up by Richard's mom because she hates him for leaving Richard, which is honestly very fair. But Frankie then apologizes, saying that there's nothing he can do to make up for what he did because simply he has missed too much, thinking that it's too late for their problems between one another to be fixed or forgiven. We then see Richard depressed as fuck, and no matter what, every attempt Gumball, Darwin, and Anais do to cheer him up fails and fails until Gumball gives him an actual pretty unexpectedly good mature talk about how he can't go back to the past and change things, but still can fix whatever's between them now because there still is a future, and that future can start now. But everything that him and his father then do to attempt to bond and create those memories that they missed out on is just more or less ruined in some way as they play football, but then it turns out the ball was stolen, resulting in Richard to just get tackled by Penny's dad. And then Frankie gives him a supposed heirloom that has been passed down by him and his cellmate, meaning that it was stolen, before he runs away and Richard gets tackled by the police, teaching him how to shave, but then revealing that they were in a house that they had broken into, teaching him how to drive, but the car was actually a getaway car to a bank heist, eventually making Richard realize that this isn't how he imagined it would go. But this then actually leads to the two opening up to one another as Frankie calls himself the Vermin Man and that he didn't want Richard to turn out like him, and then tells him that he turned out great and that his kids love him, causing Richard to honestly have one of, if not his best moment in the series, ending the story of Richard and his father in a beautiful way. But Richard's dad isn't the only parent to make a return.
This is our food for the next month!
Back up, lady! We saw it first!
I grabbed it first!
Just leave it already, it's ours!
Dad? Mom?
The parents. The family has an intense battle with Nicole trying to put unhealthy, expensive foods in the cart, and Nicole just not letting that slide. They gotta save money however they can. They are broke. Richard then says that Nicole's parents always had this ability to save money, and then we see Nicole fighting with some other family trying to get something from under the shelves, but then everything comes falling down, and it's then revealed that it's her parents. And for a moment, it's like time freezes as Nicole is shocked to see them, as if she hadn't in years. But I guess the kids then invite them to come over to the house. Richard then says to give this another chance and for her to open up, and Nicole says there's bad history between them and that they actually stopped talking 20 years ago. But then when they get in the house, things are really awkward, and Gumball barges in and tries to tell a joke to lighten the atmosphere, but then it results in them fighting and just throwing stuff at each other. But they then air out their problems, and we quickly see that when she was a kid, her parents just forced expectations upon her, trying to make her into something that she's just not, or well, is but doesn't want to be, making her wear stupid outfits, making her do every single school activity, and as she got older never approved of Richard, and well, still doesn't, as she brought another boyfriend for her. And we see that they tried to ship him to Guatemala and replace him during their honeymoon and a bunch of other things, until eventually they can't even remember what happened between them. Gumball then sings about how there's too many words that piled up and how they refuse to pick up the pieces, as Nicole cries while her parents walk out the door. And and we see that her and her parents clearly love each other, but just don't know how to show it. But as they drive away, they hit the brakes and actually come back. Nicole saying that she doesn't want to hear their excuses, just wants them back. And so her family is brought back together as they hug. Once again, the storytelling in this show is phenomenal. Nicole's backstory is really sad, and Gumball singing over them leaving made it hit even more. Now, we'll be going over the two main relationship arcs in the series, with Gumball and Penny, as well as Darwin and Carrie. Gumball and Penny's story begins in the episode The Pressure. The girls of Elmore Junior High are hanging out inside Molly's treehouse, and Masami then asks Molly what she does in there all day, and Molly responds saying that she watches The Boys, which then leads to Masami saying that you don't watch boys, you kiss them. And the girls then begin to discuss their apparent boyfriends, before Penny says that she wishes that she had a boyfriend. Just before we pan to Gumball, who is currently hoping to impress Penny by doing a skateboard stunt. But Tobias and Banana Joe then make him make a pact saying that he should always put pals before gals. Gumball hesitates but joins the pact, but at the very same time waves to Penny. The girls then ask Masami if she is a boyfriend, resulting in her to make up a lie that she's dating Darwin. And she then walks up to Darwin in the hall with the girls and makes him hold her notebook and makes it look like they're dating, which then really upsets Darwin. And feeling like he betrayed his friend's pact, he then just jumps out the window. And Penny then comes up to Gumball asking him if he wants to walk her to the canteen, and Gumball clearly wants to say yes, but knowing his friends were behind him, he tells her no and then jumps out the window as well. During lunch, Masami tries to kiss Darwin while he sits there uncomfortably, and I can't blame him. I felt so uncomfortable watching this scene. But Gumball then interrupts them, asking what they're talking about, and Masami says they were talking about how they were gonna kiss in the treehouse before ordering Darwin to follow her. But before Darwin does, he whispers for Gumball to help him, scared as hell. Darwin then tries to break up with her, but she starts crying and makes him feel like a terrible person, instantly making him get back with her and say that he'll kiss her at the treehouse. Gumball then goes with Penny as he needs a date to go into the treehouse to save Darwin. Already wanted to go with Penny anyways, so it was all working out for him, but Darwin tries to leave but gets backed into a corner, and Gumball tries to go and save him, but Penny grabs him saying that she's glad he came, causing Gumball and Penny to have this romantic scene as everything around them turns into space. But just as they're about to kiss, Tobias and Banana Joe cut down the treehouse, resulting in Gumball and Darwin to then kiss instead. Gumball didn't get his kiss sadly, but hey, at least Darwin was finally free. This episode sets up the idea of Gumball and Penny being an actual thing in the future pretty well, as well as kind of shows how their relationship may have an impact on certain friendships. In the episode The Day, Nicole asks the family if they have any riveting stories to tell, and Gumball says that Penny had apparently asked him out on a date, which we then see happen as she asks him to come to her house, and Gumball is instantly love struck, ignoring everything else that she had to say after that, which was actually the fact that she wanted him to come to her pet's funeral. So Gumball goes to Penny's house dressed up in what he at least saw as formal clothes, as he thought this was a date, but is then told that it's a funeral, making him be like, oh shit, I fucked up. But then as she says that's for her pet, he starts laughing and says thank goodness it's not a real funeral, bro was selling. But Gumball then finds out that the pet is actually alive as he opens the toilet seat to a big ass spider, and Gumball then gets bit and throws the spider at Penny, and then the day is saved as everyone's happy. But Gumball is then knocked out unconscious as he was actually bit multiple times, and the spider is of course venomous. Penny then visits Gumball in the hospital, saying that she brought someone who wants to say sorry before revealing her pet spider, who then jumps on Gumball. Bro is really out here paying the price of love. But anyways, in the episode The Night, Gumball gets his whole family to clean the house as Penny was coming over to work on a school project, but when her dad sees just how insane the Watterson family is, he just keeps driving. Gumball then decides that he's gonna prove he's good enough for Penny to him, but nothing that Gumball seems to do changes his negative outlook of him. So Gumball then goes home only to see Penny on his porch, saying since her dad said she can't see him, she just asked her mom. That was a W play by her, I'm not gonna lie. But Tobias then shows up and makes Gumball do a duel for her love, and things get out of hand really quickly, resulting in Penny to end up getting thrown into the middle of the road, where her dad then almost runs her over, but Gumball jumps in to save her, immediately making her dad thank him and see him completely different. But now Gumball's entire family doesn't like her dad because he almost ran him over and obviously drove a car into their fucking house. But nonetheless, Penny and Gumball could finally be together in peace. But in the episode The Flower, we see Gumball watching Penny doing cheerleading and celebrating, only for it to be revealed that it was all in his imagination, and that he had actually dragged Darwin out in the rain to watch her, despite the fact that the two aren't even actually officially boyfriend and girlfriend, which made him rightfully pretty upset. But Darwin shrugs off his feelings about it for now, as he had to warn Gumball about Leslie, who was seemingly making a move on his girl. Gumball's jealousy then takes over him as like an actual split personality, and tries to frame Leslie for crimes and even attempt to kill him. But eventually Carrie gets everyone to exorcise the jealousy out of Gumball, but then the jealousy decides that it's gonna blow itself up so no one can have Penny, saying that the only way for it to not do so is for Gumball to just stop being feeling jealous, but Gumball continues to believe that Penny is dating Leslie, and then it's finally revealed that Leslie and Penny are not dating and are actually cousins, ending the episode with Gumball learning a good lesson on what he should not do in relationships, even though once again they aren't even officially dating yet. But anyways, in the episode The Dream, Gumball has a dream that slowly becomes a nightmare as he sees Darwin more or less steal Penny from him, showing despite what occurred in the last episode, bro still got that jealousy. But Gumball then begins to treat Darwin like shit because of it, which is just very stupid and messed up, and then it gets taken way too far as he offers Penny 2 cupcakes, a blue one and an orange one, blue representing Gumball and orange representing Darwin, and Penny says that she wants the orange one, and so Gumball just forces her to eat the blue one. But then of course she's allergic to blueberry, and so she tells Gumball to get the pills from her locker, and of course there's blue pills and orange pills, and Gumball, despite her saying that the orange ones were the ones that she needs, of course Gumball gives her the blue pills. And yeah, bro deadass almost killed the love of his life over a dream. But Gumball and Darwin then enter each other's dreams and search for the right one until eventually finding it, and Gumball tries to get Darwin not to kiss Penny, and then right when it's about to happen, Gumball finally manages to stop it by turning Penny into sussy, leaving Darwin to now be mad at Gumball for making him do that, and Gumball now being the one saying that it's just a dream, no need to get mad, even though he just did that to him the whole episode. This is way more of a Gumball and Darwin episode than a Gumball and Penny episode, but I figured I would still discuss it as it's still about Penny, despite her only being in the episode to almost get fucking killed. The Shell, which follows Gumball and Penny doing a play at school together, and Penny improvising the two doing a kiss scene to shock the audience. But instead of kissing her, Gumball just slams his head into her, and this then creates a crack, which she then begins to panic over as a yellow light shines through her shell, and Gumball tries to ask her about it, but she avoids it. But Darwin persists, and then she says that it's apparently the real her. But they then head to Penny's house to tell her dad, which goes just about as bad as you would expect it to, with her dad grounding her and saying that she can't be herself because it's dangerous, and saying that he knows what's best for her. But Gumball stands on business and actually yells back at him, which of course results in him to get kicked out. And so Gumball goes home crying before Penny shows up at his window and says that her dad is making her move to another school. Gumball then says that that's messed up and that she should come out of her shell, but Penny says that he might not like the real her. But Gumball of course says that that's not true, and that if she comes out, they'll deal with whatever comes next together. And Penny then breaks out of her shell, revealing a golden fairy, but as Gumball is absolutely shocked by her appearance, she takes it as he didn't know what to say because she was a monster. And so with that, she shapeshifts into a monster and runs away. But Gumball chases her, and Penny's dad then shows up and calls his own daughter a freak, a pig, and a monster. And Gumball then yells at him to shut up and to think about what he just said, and continues to chase her. He is really standing on an unnecessary amount of business in this episode. Gumball then finds Penny and tells her that he was trying to protect her, and then she finally sees that he doesn't see her how these other people do or might, and Gumball then kisses her just to make the point even clearer, as she shapeshifts back into her normal self, which then causes Richard to cry, and I can't even blame him. This episode gives such a good message about being yourself. The whole coming out of your shell concept is so good, and Gumball's persistence to make her believe that she wasn't a monster, and that he really would love her no matter what, was beautiful. In the episode The Bros, Gumball asked Darwin if he had to pick someone to do something really special for, who would it be? And the two then say their answer at the same time, and of course Gumball says Penny, and Darwin says Gumball, causing Darwin to storm off in anger before yelling that he's not jealous of Penny, which he most definitely is. Darwin then tries to dig up dirt on her, but gets caught by her every time until eventually she tells him to have lunch with her and Gumball, as she clearly wanted to talk. But Darwin then completely invades on the two's relationship, taking the third wheel status to a whole other level. And then during gym, he just smacks the basketball out of Penny's hand like he was LeBron. Bro was giving her the ultimate disrespect. And this then leads to Penny telling Gumball that they need space until the two work out whatever is going on between them, causing Gumball to obviously be very mad at Darwin, but also break down crying. And so Darwin apologizes and sets up a date for the two to make it up to him, but Gumball puts a ring in Penny's drink, but this then causes her to choke, and meanwhile Darwin also sets a fire outside, but Darwin then saves both of them, and Gumball asks her to marry him, in which she says no because they're obviously 12 years old, but still finds his proposal adorable and says that the two don't need a ring to show that they love each other. Gumball and Darwin then marry each other, ending Darwin's jealousy, as it shows that the two can still be friends even if Gumball is with a girl. Kind of weird but wholesome at the same time. The romantic. Gumball is chatting with Penny on his PC and overreacts as she only sends him one heart eye emoji rather than the 3 that he normally receives, and so he sends her on a quest to find multiple clues, each one almost killing her, eventually finding herself cornered by animals in the forest where her and Gumball first kiss, where Gumball then jumps down the to save her, but when he tells her that everything that he just put her through was only because she used one emoji instead of 3, she transformed into an angry beast and easily was able to take out the monsters and escape, but still was nonetheless angry with Gumball and tells him that he needs to quit with these big gestures. But of course, right as she says this, he already had Darwin prepare fireworks for her that said that he loves her, in which she responds with a sigh and a smile. She can't not appreciate his effort to show her that he truly does love her despite everything, which was really sweet. In the episode The Transformation, Gumball goes to Penny's as she asks him to help resolve a sensitive issue regarding her parents, and things get tense very quickly, as we see the problem is that her dad still wants her to be in her shell, and after a lot of back and forth yelling at one another, the decision on whether she goes back into her shell or doesn't is placed upon Gumball. And of course, to make it even more difficult for him to decide, her dad threatens him and makes him think that he was gonna kill him, and Penny's mom does this as well, offering him a cookie that looks like him dead, which was just really creepy. But Gumball then tells a story to show them that you can't just keep saying the same things over and over and expect one another to change. It's kind of just a waste of time and nothing will progress. They can't change one another's opinions, so they just have to accept it and move on. Ending the episode with the family brought back together thanks to Gumball, as well as ending the Gumball and Penny relationship arc. Darwin's story begins in the season 1 episode, The Party, as Tobias invites everyone to a party, but his sister Rachel says that if they want to come, they have to bring a date. But Darwin doesn't even know what a date is. And so we ask Gumball, and then Robert comes and explains it to him. And Darwin then gives Gumball some suggestions on who he thinks would be a good idea for him to go with. Of course, with the first pick being Penny, but then Darwin suggests Carrie. Regardless, Gumball ends up going with Tina, and Darwin just ends up going alone. But after he finds Tobias' sister Rachel outside crying as none of her friends showed up to the party, as well as because everyone was also trashing their parents' house, Darwin says they'll clean it up, and then when he does, Rachel asks him why he doesn't have a girlfriend, and Darwin asks what he would need a girlfriend for, and then Rachel kisses him, opening his eyes to a whole new world. And then in the episode The Pressure, Carrie would lie about having a boyfriend to her friend, showing both Carrie and Darwin somewhat both wanted a relationship. And then in the season 2 episode Halloween, Gumball, Anais, Darwin, and Carrie all hang out as Carrie had invited them to a party, in which Darwin actually wanted nothing to do with, as he was rightfully scared. But then after entering the creepy house where the party was being held, Carrie tells them to drink only 1 drop of this potion that would supposedly make them part ghosts, and this then makes them be able to see all the other ghosts, quickly changing Darwin's mind on the party. But after the other ghosts realize that they're mortals, they drink the rest of the potions, which fully turns them into ghosts. And as soon as Darwin does, he instantly kisses Carrie without a second thought, which then makes Carrie blush. Gumball and Darwin then go through town and mess with people, but Carrie then tells them if they don't get back to their bodies by midnight, that they'll be stuck as ghosts forever. But the midnight bells then go off, and they start running to get their bodies back, as well as to save Anais, whilst the other ghosts try to stop them. And in the midst of all of this, Carrie ends up saving Darwin, and then they end up getting their bodies back. But then Nicole shows up, and as they talk, we see that they're all actually in the wrong bodies. But they say it's okay because Carrie can fix it. But then Carrie just dips, giving her not the best first impression than Darwin's mom. But continuing on, in the season 3 episode The Mirror, Gumball gets an email from someone named the Snatcher, saying that if he doesn't forward it to 10 other people, he'll be cursed. But Gumball just deletes the message. But then when he asks Carrie about it, she gets scared and teleports away. And Gumball then loses all of his friends and his girlfriend, making him start to believe that this curse may be real. And so they visit the witch, who then tells him that the Snatcher fell in love with a ghost after seeing her in a mirror. And after doing an incantation that allowed the living to touch ghosts, he was forced to live the cursed life of being trapped in a mirror, and ever since has been looking for someone who can take his place. And Carrie then shows up and tells them the same thing, but that the Snatcher and the ghost had a child, and that child is her. The Snatcher then shows up and tries to kill everyone, but they manage to defeat him. And then he steps through the mirror, now back to normal. And with Carrie and her dad reunited, they go to hug, but of course he falls right through, and he then falls out the window, which kills him, turning him into a ghost, making it so they could actually hug, which was pretty wholesome. And Gumball, and specifically Darwin, helping her bring her dad back to normal would definitely be a big reason for the two's relationship to grow, bringing us to the season 4 episode titled The Scam, where we would get our biggest hint so far to Carrie and Darwin actually becoming a thing. The episode follows Gumball trying to convince Darwin to do a ghost hunting scam with Carrie in order to get some candy, in which at first Darwin refuses, but then Gumball says,
Not even to get close to Carrie. If she's gonna eat all that candy, she'll need a body to possess.
in which makes Darwin blush and imagine the two together. And then once they have the candy, and Carrie asks Darwin if she can use his body, she says this whilst blushing, and then Darwin tries to make his insides more inhabitable. But then the monster they used to scare people in their scam showed up, and Carrie says that she will sacrifice her own life by marrying it to save them, which Darwin does not take well to. And so Gumball makes his own sacrifice of giving the monster the candy he had to kill it. But the ending of this episode left Carrie and Darwin fans only asking for more, as before they leave they share an interesting interaction showing that the two clearly weren't truly saying whatever they wanted to say to each other whilst trying to do so at the same time.
Bye.
Bye.
Unless you're hungry.
Not really. What was left of that candy looked pretty well digested.
Oh, right. Never mind.
Or we could just get an ice cream.
I'd like.
Come on already.
But then finally in the season 5 episode titled The Matchmaker, after multiple episodes of build-up, fans finally got the episode they had been waiting for, as we see Darwin crying singing a song about a girl, who Gumball then comes to the conclusion is Terry as he finds a picture of her on the computer. And Gumball then asks Carrie if she will help him make Terry fall in love with him, which clearly makes her upset. And Gumball even actually tells her and acknowledges the fact that he thought that he was into her. Regardless, Carrie then says that she'll help Gumball, but then of course makes all of his plans fail, as she doesn't want Darwin to date Terry. Eventually, Darwin does go to express his feelings in a way to her, but as Terry is right next to her, Carrie and Gumball continue to assume that this was all about her. Carrie then tells Gumball that she likes Darwin, and Gumball apologizes and even tries to hug her, which makes Carrie realize that if she truly loves Darwin, she shouldn't try to ruin his chances of being happy, even if it is with someone else. So Carrie and Gumball then make a love potion and use it on Terry and Darwin, and but when Gumball tells Darwin that he was the cause of this and mentions the picture of Terry that made him think he was in love with her in the first place, Darwin tells him that it was actually a picture of Carrie and that she just doesn't show up on pictures as she's a ghost. And so Gumball tells Carrie, and then the two try to break the two up, but the only thing that actually manages to snap Darwin out of it is when he sees Carrie crying. Carrie then finally asks Darwin out, and then the two kiss, ending the episode giving fans exactly what they had wanted and had been waiting for so long. But then in the last Darwin and Carrie focused episode in the series, we see Darwin and Carrie on a date in which we get to see all the good and all the bad things that entail with their relationship, such as how they can't eat together, how one has legs and the other doesn't, one phases through things while the other doesn't, both see the worlds in completely different ways, as well as one likes rock music and the other doesn't. But despite all this stuff, we still see that the two laugh all of this off and still have a great time being together. But then we see that Carrie actually had a boyfriend before Darwin named Azriel, who shows up whilst they're at the arcade, and Carrie says that the two should hang out. And Gumball, seeing this, asks Darwin what he's gonna do about it, taking Darwin to step in on the two hanging out, in which we get this beautiful guest animated scene. But anyways, we then see that Carrie just simply is friends with her ex and isn't cheating or anything that Gumball assumes. And we also see that Darwin trusts Carrie and didn't think that she was in the slightest. And so Gumball then apologizes to the two, ending the episode with the two's relationship on a really good note, honestly. But now with the story of every Watterson discussed, from Nicole and Richard's childhoods, to them getting married and having a kid together named Gumball, to adopting Darwin, to the birth of Anais, to Richard and Nicole's parents both returning, to the story of Penny and Gumball, as well as Darwin and Carrie, now we can finally cover the last main storyline arc in the Amazing World of Gumball, which is, of course, The Void. In the episode The Void, Gumball is cheering on Penny before her and the other cheerleaders seemingly explode, making them believe a different outcome would have happened if someone was there to help them. Mr. Small then appears, enabling and confirming their suspicions by mentioning that he lost his van named Janice, and he was only able to remember due to wearing a tinfoil hat, which leads Gumball and Darwin to believe that someone from their town was missing before they start noticing strange signs like a missing locker in their school and even ghostly outlines of a person in old photos. Gumball and Darwin try to get the rest of the school to remember who this mysterious person who had just disappeared was, but nobody was able to. But Mr. Small then gives the two a tinfoil hat and helps them find a photo which actually showed the missing person, which was a character named Molly from season 1, who appeared multiple times. They then start to notice a line throughout the world and spots Molly's existence was cut from, which when open gives us the first glimpse of the Void, a place that would come up again and be extremely prominent in regards to the show's overall plot and story. They then find Molly in her treehouse and apologize for forgetting her, but she says that she just saw them yesterday, revealing that inside the Void, time doesn't pass. They then take her with them before passing by someone else in the Void, who was a character known as Rob, who tries to wave at Gumball and Darwin but gets ignored. And then manages to escape the void by jumping onto their van as they're leaving, as shown in the Nobody. They then say that they have to tell everyone before the world makes them forget, and then instantly the void sucks their tinfoil hats, which completely removes their memories of everything that had just happened. In the episode The Oracle, the void shows up once again as Banana Barbara, who has the ability to paint the future, paints a picture of the Watterson family running inside of the void, showing massive foreshadowing for the future. But in the episode The Nobody, Gumball and Darwin get blamed for multiple things they didn't do, making them believe that someone else was secretly living in their house, before eventually stumbling upon a secret passageway where they then find none other than Rob. And Rob then explains that the reason he's been living there is because there's no place for him in this world, and that he has no purpose and is a nobody. And so Gumball and Darwin decide that Rob can be their mortal enemy, saying that he can be the worst guy the world has ever made, which makes him remember that he was a mistake casted into the void, left thinking that Gumball and Darwin only wanted to save Molly and not him. But as I mentioned before, he managed to escape with them, but now holds this against them and blames them for being the reason that he's disfigured, thus making him their actual mortal enemy, as he claims that he will destroy them and everything they love. And then in the episode The Disaster, we see Rob get his hands on a remote, which is actually able to interact and change the world with its buttons. And with this, he tries to ruin Gumball's life by making his parents get into a car crash, forcing him to tell Darwin that their parents have money problems due to adopting him, making his parents divorce, making him cheat on his girlfriend, as well as push her off the top floor of the mall. But Rob then pauses the remote, freezing everyone except himself and Gumball, before opening the void and throwing the remote inside of it. But Gumball jumps in to retrieve the remote and hits rewind before the episode ends. And the rest of this is then played out in the next episode, The Rerun, in which Gumball is sent back to the beginning of the last episode, where he then begins to fight Rob and pushes him into the void, but ends up going back in to save him, making Rob decide to hit rewind so everything goes back to normal, realizing that Gumball isn't so bad after all, before destroying the remote for good. But in the episode The Future, Rob takes the role of the villain once again, as he kidnaps Banana Barbara and takes her to a warehouse to force her to paint the future. And as she just paints pictures of the void, Rob continues to make her paint more drawings until eventually she draws a portal to Gumball and Darwin, showing that she could alter the paintings and therefore change the future. They then fight Rob and end up erasing him from the world once again, but Gumball asks her to bring Rob back, but she then draws a picture of Rob falling into the void, which we will see again. Nonetheless, Gumball then says that they'll see Rob in the future, but afterward Banana Barbara says that there is no future, before the episode cuts to static, once again showing that the void will be coming back and will seemingly be the cause of this world's end. In the last episode of Gumball, for the first time in the series, an actual human being appears as the supposed superintendent of Elmore High School, whose name is literally Evil, who sets out to remove the cartoonish nature of everyone by turning them into literal humans. But Gumball and Darwin quickly figure out how to turn them back, thus making the principal run away, but Banana Joe uses his peel to make them fall over. But we then find out that this supposed principal was actually Rob all along, who tries to explain that something was going to happen to Elmore and was his reasoning for trying to turn them into humans. But as he tries to explain what's apparently going to happen, he gets beaten up by Tina. And the episode then ends, but then we actually got a final cutscene after the credits showing Rob waking up before getting knocked out. And Rob then says that transformation is apparently the only chance they have at escaping to the other place, which I assume is the real world before this one is destroyed. We then see the void crack open the ground beneath Rob, resulting in him to fall in, just like the picture we saw Banana Barbara draw in the episode The Future, ending the series on a cliffhanger which would confuse everyone and leave them begging for more answers. But after 7 long years, it was finally confirmed that it would be getting resolved in the next season, which actually ended up being an entirely new show titled The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball. But the first 20 episodes sadly released, having no mention or even anything related to the void or Rob or the cliffhanger whatsoever. But it is confirmed to be getting resolved in the next batch of episodes. So if you want to see me cover that, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications so you don't miss it when the video comes out. But nonetheless, that's going to be the end of the video. So once again, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next one whenever that is.